unlike the Knicks, where we didn't get answers with the full roster, the Knicks went out because everybody was injured, and you don't know what that group is going to be if they do decide to run it back with Randall and Anunoby. We know definitively now this group ain't good enough. They will never win a Stanley Cup with this group led by Zibanejad, Panarin, and Chris Kreider.
I agree. They're not good enough. And, it's tough because you only get so many chances to kick that door in, Sal. That's it. You talk about, you just mentioned the Knicks. Think about, going through, the Ewing era. You knew that, all right, how many chances do you really get, to get by the Bulls, to, beat the Pacers, to beat the Rockets? There's a finite window. And what's really tough about this, and this is Chris Drury's job, I think I have my answer, but what the hell do I know except that the Rangers were not nearly as good as Florida, which unfortunately I was right about. This was not an anomaly. They could play 10 series. Maybe get a couple of 7 games. Maybe the Rangers get a little lucky, win a series or 2. Florida's simply much better.
See, I disagree with that, though.
Wow.
Look,
I saw 2 totally different teams, man.
I'm not. Look, Florida obviously played better, and I think that they wanted it more. But I'm not going to say that they're significantly better than the Rangers. This was still a close series, even another loss, a one-goal game. Now, the Rangers didn't do enough. I don't know what they did. Rangers didn't do anything. Somebody's got to do something. They did nothing. But I just want to give you a quick example because I do think there's this, Florida's just far superior. I don't believe that to be the case. While they are a much more physical team and their better players are more physical players, which plays to the Rangers' weakness.
Yep.
So it's just an awful...
It's not a good matchup,
right.
too.
I don't know if you remember this, BT, but the Stanley Cup final 10 years ago, 2013-14, Rangers versus the Kings, to me, I'm just using that series as an example. I clearly felt the Kings were the better team, and there was nothing the Rangers could do about it. They weren't as good. The goaltender was great. They just weren't on that level that the Kings were at. Stanley Cup champion, the pedigree, the dynasty, whatever. Rangers weren't there. I do not feel like that with this Panthers team. Difficult matchup? Yes. Panthers good? Yes. Panthers played better throughout the course of the series? Sure. I don't feel like they're far superior, which to me makes it even more frustrating when you're trying to figure out how to build. I don't think it's a skill thing. I think it's your best players aren't tough enough to succeed in the postseason.
Well, then they got to go.
Right.
I mean, that's it. Gone. Listen, I think there's a big gap between the two. I know what you mean. If they're... It's not like there's this obvious, clear, massive gap in terms of skill, but what Florida does really well, the Rangers are not good at.
Correct.
And it makes them look, I don't want to say soft, but it makes them look far inferior to Florida.
Well, they are soft, though.
Yeah, they are. Against the board, along the boards. They are. And that surfaced all series. But I think that the tough thing for Drury now, does he retool and kind of tweak just to beat Florida, which I don't think that they should do? Or do they attack this differently for something that's more sustained when you get to 2, 3, 4 years down the road? I mean, the Florida Panthers are not the 85 Boston Celtics.
Right.
Let's not go nuts here.
Right.
They're good. They didn't win the Stanley Cup a year ago. They lost
that's kind of my point.
I get that. But what worries me and what should terrify real Ranger fans, all right, here we go. You're a couple of years now into wasting another goalie's prime. You did it with Lundqvist. You never got through. You're in the, 30-ish percent, 35%, maybe slightly more, approaching 40% into Igor's prime, and you're doing it again. Well, now you got some cap issues. You've got some tough Lindgren. That's a tough call. I know that he's restricted, and I know that Drury's got about $8 or $9 million to play with, but you've got to extend Igor. This is, God, I don't want to overstate this, but this really might, and I don't want to be a prisoner of the moment. I don't, but I feel like I'm right here. This might be the most pivotal summer the Rangers have had in 20 years.
Two things on that. Number one, I think it is because they've had this group together. They've added some key pieces to it. Trocheck, the biggest part. You replace him. You bring in Trocheck and get rid of Ryan Strome. That was a significant upgrade that was supposed to take them over the top. They've brought in the ancillary pieces each of the last couple years at the trade deadline to bring a different, level of physicality, all those different things there. That hasn't worked. It's because of the stars. Now, number one, first and foremost, I trust Chris Drury to figure this thing out. But the problem
Can I stop you for a second before you? Okay, I'm not saying that I don't, but did he do enough at the trade deadline?
Well, but here's
that's part of the overall trust here.
But here's the
what
problem.
What did he do?
I do think he was okay at the deadline. You shouldn't have to be adding superstars at the deadline. Their best players. Think about it, BT. They have the best goaltender in the world.
Yep.
They won the President's Trophy. Most wins, all those different things led them to the President's Trophy, of course. Then you have them have their superstars. Panarin was having MVP-type years. Zibanejad, terrific. Kreider, we talk about hanging his jersey to the rafters one day. Like, they had all the key pieces. You needed to upgrade the ancillary pieces, which I think he did to the best of his ability. Would you have wanted more? Sure. Would that have been the difference? Who knows? I didn't come away from it saying they didn't do enough. Was it the sexy move? No, but ultimately, they didn't fail because of the lack of depth added. They failed because of the superstars. Who at the deadline were you getting that's going to replace Panarin, Zibanejad, or Kreider?
Oh, I have. That's true. I don't know. I'm not going to just make something. I don't know. But all I know is it didn't seem like he did enough. I heard Ranger fans talking about that in real time. And, as it manifested itself on the ice here for the past 2 weeks against a team that, for me, again, we saw the series different. Clearly better than it wasn't even. I know the scores were close. I get that. And the scores were close because Igor is all world. But, I mean, the other aspects, I said this 2 games in. If you comprise a checklist, it's like Florida. Check. Coaching, very close. I love the Rangers coach. I love Igor. Everything else, advantage Florida. I know Drury's good, but he's got to be better than good. He's got to be great for this team to cut through. It's the same song and dance every year.
Right, and the biggest picture thing here is, and we'll get to the calls here in a second, 888-808-1019. You cannot run it back with the same core. We talk about the Mets core. They have to figure out a way. Now, I know contracts are going to be a pain in the neck. Well, that's Drury's job. Figure it out. Whether it's trading Kreider, which you can maybe get something back for, whether it's moving on from Panarin. I don't even know if that's possible. If he doesn't want to get traded, Zibanejad, same thing. And I love those guys. However, it's been proven. Where if I think the Rangers are more talented than the Panthers, well, then how come the Panthers just beat them? Because the Panthers do it differently. They do it more physically in the postseason. That style of play, the Rangers don't. I mean, they're built like a Western Conference team, and they can't get through the East. Whether it was Tampa a couple years ago, whether it's Florida this year.
Even Carolina was a lot tougher than that final result indicated, man. That was a tough series. Could have gone either way.
I'll be curious to see the results now that we know the Oilers are in. I'd be curious to see. Not that I'm going to watch every game. But
the Oilers are in. You see.
What?
You didn't see?
No.
Social media, the Oilers fan? No.
I did not see that. Is that what Hoff texted us before? No, but the Oilers are in. No, I'm not.
I'll get to it later.
I want to see how another team plays against another top team. Like, I didn't think Boston was good enough.
I know what you're saying.
I want to see how, and if it really is Florida's, toughness and grit and all that stuff, or can they be beaten?
They weren't gritty enough last year. Can I just say two more things? Number one, and this is, I've always known this, Ranger fans are amazing. I wish I cared about the Rangers the way real Ranger fans do. Man, you guys have something special, and you deserve. Well, you get what you deserve. But I would have liked to have seen this culminated with a cup for you. You guys are awesome. Number two. Now I said
30 years here. I mean, and the problem with them is, like, at least with the Jets or Mets, they generally don't give you much hope. The Rangers are there almost every year.
They take you to an emotional break, and then the letdown is far tougher than getting nowhere. I agree with that. Now the other thing too, and I think this is a bigger picture, and this is why I'm just not very bullish on the Rangers Cup future unless they do some radical things here. And you referenced a couple things, maybe trading some piece of the core or at least see it if you can. This series, massive advantage Florida. Honestly, the Carolina Panthers, it was what it was. I don't think the Rangers have played really good hockey for a month, dude. Like, I know they advanced past Carolina. Not that impressive. And this series against Florida, not even close. So literally they were a series away from getting to the Cup. I get that. But the Rangers team, and I tell you, I'm not watching much during the regular season. I'm watching the Knicks. I'm watching college basketball. I've watched every second of every game this playoffs. And forget about the Capitals series. The last 2 rounds, Sal, they didn't look that good.
Yeah, I mean, they still had an incredible win against Carolina. I'm not going to go nuts and pick apart that, but their power play started to go south. And look, they were built on their goaltender and their special teams. And with their skill and their special teams, if they don't cut through and score power play goals, I told you they're not going to win the series. They didn't do it. They had 1 power play goal. You can't win the series like that. All right, BT and Sal on the Fan. Our friends at Town Fair Tire remind you that at Town Fair Tire, you always get the guaranteed lowest price on name brand tires from Connecticut to Maine. Nobody beats Town Fair Tire. Nobody. Spencer is in Merrick. What's up, Spence?
Hey, how are you guys doing?
Great.
So the one thing that I have to say is you can't use an excuse as someone wanted more in losing in a game. Obviously, the Panthers wanted to go back because they lost last year, but that's never an excuse. I never want to hear that as a reasoning.
It is reasoning. It's not an excuse. Nobody's making an excuse. The Panthers played more determined. I mean, they clearly played like they had more of an urgency.
Better. It doesn't mean they wanted it more. If you don't want it,
I do think they
and
wanted
you're
it
getting
more.
to this point, how are you a professional player if you don't want to win at all? It just doesn't make any sense to me.
Spence, hold on, one second. I hear what you're saying. I also know why Sal's pushing back. There are varying degrees of engagement. There are varying degrees of pursuit. I got it. I feel like Florida, just the way their style almost presents the notion that they wanted it more.
Who worked harder?
I think that's unfair to the Rangers.
Who worked harder in the series?
Yes, they worked harder. 100%.
Okay, so what does that mean, worked harder? Does that mean Florida had more skill than the Rangers, or they worked harder? And then you get to the definition.
They made them play their game.
Okay,
they didn't do anything to change it.
The Rangers were outworked. They were outworked in the series.
100%.
Okay, that means Florida wanted it more to me.
That's not how it
if you go, Spencer, do you remember the Stanley Cup Finals when the Rangers were there against the Kings?
Yeah.
Okay, and if you watch that series, clearly to me there was a better team in the series. No.
Yeah, but I mean that's how it happens in the playoffs. So
right, but that was not
doesn't work out.
That was not
better. That was not than the other team.
Oh God. Thanks for the call, Spencer. Really enlightening. That's not the point. The Florida Panthers did not do what the Kings did to the Rangers back then. The Rangers weren't good enough, meaning that if the Rangers played their best game, they still couldn't beat the Kings. That's how good the Kings were.
I know what you're saying.
I don't believe that that's the case with this Panthers series. Now, look, the Panthers beat them in 6.
I do.
I just think it's a different style, which means that the Rangers, while you can look at certain teams and be like, well, they don't have the skill set. They have the best goalie in the world. They have elite skill players, the Rangers. They had elite special teams that the Panthers shut down. You give them credit. The Panthers outworked the Rangers. They grinded them. That's what they did. Panthers didn't even do anything. They just outworked them. They battled along the boards. They got to the puck possession, all those boring things that we talk about. Panthers weren't lighting the world on fire with elite skill. What did they do exactly? Did they have great goaltending? They were better defensively.
They possessed the puck.
They put their bodies in front of the pucks.
Yep.
They did. Yeah, the Panthers outworked the Rangers. They wanted it more. Panarin didn't want to go in the corner and get hit. Zibanejad didn't want to work. Kreider didn't want to work. They got outworked. They have more talent. There's a reason why they won the President's Trophy. So what happened? They got outworked by a team who and one area we disagree as well, BT, is I think the Panthers outcoached the Rangers in this series. I thought Maurice did a much, and I like Laviolette. I think Maurice did a much better job. Their team, their style, whatever they do, it works. And they outworked the Rangers.
They definitely outworked them. Listen, maybe a little semantics in terms of the whole wanting it more. Yeah, because we can't prove that really. I think they out-executed the Rangers.
You think the Rangers play with any urgency in Game 6?
No. Now,
How about Game 1?
Oh, it was an embarrassment.
Okay.
I think that the Rangers right now, you just said a mouthful, dude. The way you just summarized some of their top players not wanting to go and scrape along the boards and do what you have to do to win the requisite amount of games to win and raise a Stanley Cup. If you're not doing that in the latest stages of May, early weekend of June, you know what? You got to go. Because then you're not a Stanley Cup champion. If you're not doing it now, what are you waiting for?
And
I don't think they didn't do it because they didn't want to do it. I don't think that they did it because they're not capable of doing it, against that type of a team.
Which is why I almost give Panarin a pass, and I kind of did last week. But which is bad enough because you shouldn't be giving your best player a pass to be invisible in a series. But I didn't expect it from him because he just doesn't do that. However, with Kreider and Zibanejad, they need to be better. And the Rangers they got punked. The Panthers were in control. The Panthers were talking like the Rangers didn't do anything. They were waiting for something to happen. Tony is on Long Island. What's up, Tony?
Yo, yeah, I agree with you guys 100%. Panarin and Zibanejad not made for the playoffs because of lack of size, and they can't get any open ice, and they're not going to win a Stanley Cup with guys like that. You can win with them, but you got to add like a Adam Graves or something like that. But you guys are 100% right. It's not going to happen just with them.
Look,
I agree.
Kreider is, and thanks for the call, Tony. That's the big picture thing. I don't know any Ranger fan that would dispute that. While we all love Kreider, Zibanejad, and Panarin for different reasons, it's been proven now multiple times, none more evident than this year. Those guys cannot be the best players to get you over the hump to win a Stanley Cup. They can't. Trocheck, yes, he's a playoff player. He's a guy that you want.
Lafreniere
Lafreniere has proven
player.
himself. I mean, he's starting to come into his own. By the way, Capo Caco, who I know has been a bust relative to the expectation, but he's a guy that I wouldn't give up on yet because he's a physical player that can possess the puck. And if you're looking for physical players, like, is he the same player that Kreider or Zibanejad or Panarin is? Absolutely not. He's not that elite level player. However, he's a physical player with a big body that can possess the puck, and you need that in the postseason. Now, he's got to grow into his own, of course, but if those are the things that you're looking for, the Rangers built this the best way that they could with a certain philosophy and idea in mind. It didn't work. Now they need to go back to the drawing board and say, okay, how are we going to change this up? Where are we going to get bigger, more physical, change our style instead of being a finesse team that is elite on the power play or can light the lamp in the regular season? How are we going to get better, tougher 5-on-5 and in the postseason get over the hump and get through the grind?
Sal, I mean, it's not that dissimilar, though it's obviously a different sport than Cashman, and he's done it. You know, how many times can you bludgeon weak teams during the regular season, smash Lord knows how many home runs, and, you know, have a run differential of plus 170, and then get into October and face somebody who's dealing and go down like a bunch of wusses with 3 hits and no runs. So they had to recalibrate, and they have, and we'll get to the Yanks later, who they are. You know, imagine like the Knicks because we always thought this might be it for a point. Hey, summer of '94, you know, Knicks were up 2-0. Forget about beating the Sixers. Knicks are up 2-0 on the Pacers. Rangers, obviously, President's Cup and smashed the Capitals. Like, we're having these dreams of these massive visions. Imagine those Knicks trying to win now. Half court, stagnant, no three-point shooters really outside of Hubert Davis. No, this Ranger, it wouldn't work. This Rangers team must evolve. They're not tough enough. And if I can see that, then they're not tough enough.
And it doesn't mean that all three have to go.
No, definitely not.
But at least one of them needs to be replaced with somebody who's almost as good, but much more physical and bigger and a grinder.